Welcome, everybody, to the Far Post Podcast. We are finally back for our first show post-bubble. It has been 6 weeks since we were last on the show with you guys. The day before the Reds left for Orlando and the Amos is Back tournament down in Florida. We spent the past month down there covering the Reds' return to play in Orlando. Now we are back home, getting ready for the return of the regular season next Friday night, August 21st, when the Reds will play at Gillette Stadium against the Philadelphia Union. Exciting times. It's all happening, and we're here to cover it. I'm your host today, Jeff Lemieux. I am joined once again by Elizabeth Pajota. Elizabeth, how you doing?
I'm good, Jeff. How are you?
Good. A lot of exciting stuff going on. Hope you're ready.
I'm ready. 9 days from now, we're going to be playing a game at Gillette Stadium, and man, I'm pretty eager.
And then there's going to be a game like every 2 days for 3 months.
We're just going to cram them all in really quickly, Condensed schedule. We're going to really just do a lot of different exercises during this time.
We're just making up for lost time. We didn't have soccer for a few months, so now it's going to be soccer every day. That's the way it should be all the time.
I like that.
So we're really excited for what's coming up. We're excited to talk about it, and we're excited to talk about it today by our special guest joining us on the Far Post Podcast for the second time. No longer a Far Post Podcast rookie, but still a professional rookie, centerback Henry Kessler. Henry, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Glad to be back.
Yeah, you feel like you're a Far Post veteran now? This is the second time on the show.
I'm getting there. I thought my first appearance went well, and certainly looking forward to more appearances after this one.
Yeah, you gave 110%. That's all you can do is give 110%. Learn the positives, the negatives, take those into the next game. Work on the things that you thought went well. Try to work on the things that didn't go so well.
Exactly.
It's just like being a professional athlete.
It's basically the same thing.
So much crossover.
That is what I tell myself all the time. When people ask me, what do you do for a living? I'm like, well, I work in digital for a professional soccer team. It's pretty much the same thing as being a professional athlete.
I'd say so. Yeah, pretty accurate.
Almost indiscernible. Well, Henry, you're back home, had your 25-day experience in the bubble down in Orlando. And I first want to ask about coming back home and reacclimating to society, because I thought it was funny. I talked to Matt Turner last week, and he said he thought it was actually a little bit more difficult getting reacclimated into the world than he thought it was going to be. What's it been like for you coming back into society?
Right. I think that's an accurate assessment from Matt. I want to say it was almost harder to reacclimate to society than to acclimate to the bubble, which is saying something. But, going 25 days with just the same routine, right? Just going to the meal room, really not having a lot in your control that you could do yourself, but sticking to that routine. And then, coming home, getting a couple of days off, it was interesting. So the first couple of days were strange for sure.
What did you feel those days with?
Sorry, what do I feel about
How did you feel those days?
Oh, yeah. There was a sense of freedom for sure. Being able to leave a certain area, go to the store, actually buy something, make my own food, stuff like that, freedoms that we didn't really have. Having said that, the bubble, I think they did a great job. I'm certainly not complaining, but there were things that I do appreciate that we didn't have access to inside the bubble.
Yeah, what was it, the first thing you did when you got back, when you had an opportunity to finally do something that maybe you hadn't been able to do in the bubble? What was like the thing you were like, oh, it's so nice to be able to do this?
Yeah, I think I made myself a little cereal, sat on the couch, watched some TV. I think that was the first thing I did when I got back. And then, things like sleeping in your own bed are really nice. So I think just chill was the first thing that I did back after that, we were at work, for most of those days. So, long time.
And now I know you mentioned too, being able to go to the store, being able to get your own food, cook your own meals, which I know is nice. That was one of the things for me, having a little bit more choice in food was nice. But on the flip side, it was also kind of nice for 25 days to have all of our meals prepared for us and laid out. And was it nice for you during that month down in Orlando, as someone who's still kind of getting used to living on your own and cooking your own meals and stuff, was it nice to have that little period where it's like, all right, food's decided for me for the day?
Yeah, for sure. And you know how much I eat, Jeff. So it was expenses paid for in terms of food, which was really nice. Helped out financially a bit. Yeah, so I'm not going to lie. It was nice, having 3 prepared meals for you. And then, we were also able to eat out at the restaurants at the Swan and Dolphin. So there were still options, and they mixed it up when it was buffet and like the steakhouse, whatever, Italian, whatever it was when we went out to eat. So there were plenty of options. Yeah, so I mean, that's something that I didn't take for granted. But you're right. 3 meals prepared for us each day, hard to complain with that.
Henry, last time we chatted with you, you said that you had dived into the cooking side of things, being at home for so long, and your go-to meal was brown rice and tilapia. How quickly have you readjusted to cooking for yourself?
You'd be disappointed. I've made zero progress in the kitchen. I've learned very few new dishes, if any. Sorry. The first place I went to when I got back was actually Chipotle. So there you go. Since I've been sticking to the same things, but, eating out a bit more. I need to get back into the cooking routine, but I need to mix it up as well. But yeah, so sorry.
That's okay. I mean, your 3rd time on the Fire Post podcast. Come back with something you made. That's your task this time.
You're right. I'll come prepared. Homework will be done.
Great.
I feel like a lot was made of the food down in Orlando before we got down there. Obviously, there were all these questions about, is it going to be like boxed lunch? Is it going to be boxed food? What's it going to be like? But I mean, obviously from my experience, yeah, you're eating, there's a little bit of repetition. It's got a lot of chicken and rice and vegetables and stuff like that. But I think a lot was made about how bad the food was going to be down there. And I thought the food was fantastic. What was your favorite meal of the options we had down in Orlando?
Yeah. So I think my take was fairly similar. I think that first day where we had to initially quarantine worried people a little bit because we had the food delivered to us in our rooms. And, I guess it wasn't quite what people expected. So I think that first day, kind of got people a little eerie. But after that, I agree with you. The food was pretty good. My favorite meal, what was the name of the steakhouse? Anyways, it was that. Shula's, yeah. So I thought that was very good. Yeah, and steak is my favorite food, so I'll go with that.
I know we went to Shula's 3 times, and we had limited options as to what we could have, but I did the same thing every time. I did Caesar salad, 8-ounce filet medium, and then the chocolate cake. Did you stray at all from what you did at Shula's?
Same thing every time. Same thing every time, which was the Caesar salad. I actually went New York strip because, there's a bit more quantity. I think it was 12 ounces.
It was 16. The filet was 8 and the strip was 16 ounces. Yeah.
16. Yeah. All the more reason to go strip. So I went with the strip, and then I also got the chocolate cake, which was very good.
Delicious.
You can't go wrong with chocolate cake.
You can't go wrong.
I know there's been so much conversation about life in the bubble. People were so interested before we went down there about what life was going to be like in the bubble because there's so many professional sports leagues that were returning under these types of circumstances. The NBA, obviously, also in Orlando. The NHL has their own bubble going on right now. NWSL had a bubble before anybody else even had a bubble in Utah. So I think there was just a lot of interest about what life was going to be like in the bubble. Now, when I've gotten home, I've had so many people ask me, what was life like in the bubble? Just overall, and this will be the last question about, the bubble experience, but what was kind of the overall experience like for you down in the bubble in Orlando?
Right. Yeah. So I think some people entered with certain expectations. I tried not to, because I feel like when you enter with expectations, you really can only be disappointed. So, I was expecting even less than there was, and I thought like we said, the food was great. We still, teams could reserve pools. So we did that a couple times, which was nice to, swim a little bit, cool off. They did have lounges for us we played plenty of cards. A lot of people brought their Xboxes or PlayStations to keep themselves entertained as well. But, and we got to go golfing one time, which I think we all enjoyed. So from my experience, it was positive. But then again, I don't live with my family. So for those guys, I think it was much harder, saying goodbye to their wives and children for a month almost. But, from my point of view, it was positive, and the MLS got all the games in that they wanted to. I mean, obviously Dallas and Nashville had to be sent back, but that wasn't even due to the bubble. They came in like that. So I think it was a success on the part of MLS, and personally, I thought it was a good experience as well.
So you were one of the guys that was in the card room all the time, right? Because my room was literally across the hall from the card room. You guys kept it pretty respectful in the card room. It wasn't too loud, I gotta say.
We try, yeah. We try to keep the arguing to a minimum. Sometimes it gets out of hand, but yeah, it was a good way to pass the time with whatever the game was that we were playing. A lot of poker, some other games. So, but yeah, for sure, a good way to pass the time.
Who was the poker star?
So there are two groups. There are the older guys, who I've learned from experience with not to play with because I can't handle it. So because they're much better than me. I would say that's Teal, Gustavo, Diego, Alex, Willie, and a few others. So that's like kind of the older guys, and they play, and they're much better than I am. And then a group of us younger guys play with me, Dewan, Brandon, Jeff, Renix, Tejan. So there's two different groups, and I tried to stick to the younger group because that's the group I was more successful with. So I actually gave myself a chance to win. But I'm trying to think who did the best. I remember Teal saying he won a lot, Wilfred as well, and then from the younger guys, I don't know. We're more evenly matched. Yeah.
I gotta say, it seemed like a lot of the time when you guys were down in the meal room and you were trying to organize games, it felt like Teal was the guy trying to get guys organized, which leads me to believe that Teal was winning a lot in poker if he wanted to get the games organized all the time.
100%. 100%. Yeah, he was always trying to get guys to play because he's good and he wins. So I guess good for him. Yeah.
Hey, well, your younger circle is going to get up there soon, so you keep putting in those hours. It's going to pay off.
Exactly. Improvement. We're training.
Yeah. We've got a whole pathway with the club from academy to Revs 2 to the first team. We have the same thing in the poker room. It's that pathway to the pros.
Same thing.
Well, you guys, you made some progress down in Orlando with the poker skills. Most importantly, you guys made some progress on the field as well at the MLS's back tournament. You guys get 4 games in down there. So I'll start kind of more macro as a team in the four games you guys had down there, 3 of which counted towards the regular season, and then the knockout round game against Philadelphia. What were your main takeaways from that tournament? What kind of strides do you think the group was able to make in the 4 games you had down there?
Right. So I'll start with the first 3, which were, we got a result in every match. So that's definitely something positive. 5 points from 3 games, is a decent return. So I think that was positive. And knowing those games were counted towards the league was really important to get points from those games, especially. And then, the 4th game was I think it was played more like a knockout round game where, teams were a little bit more tentative, didn't want to give up an early one or something like that. So, but overall, I think we made strides, certainly. Obviously, good to get that win against Montreal after losing week 1. And then, I think even in our 2 draws, I think there were chances to take all 3 points. So, you look at it that way, I think it was a pretty positive from a result standpoint.
And how about for you as an individual? Because you've been in such a unique circumstance. You're obviously a rookie. You're getting your first real taste of the professional game. You get 2 appearances back in March, and then you have this completely bizarre situation where for 4 months you don't get the opportunity to play any more games. Then you get a few appearances down in Orlando. So you're still kind of getting a whole feel for the professional game. So how important were those games down there for you as you continue that progression? And what do you feel like you kind of continue to learn about yourself and your game down in Florida?
Right. Yeah. Something that, I still want is, that routine, because we had two games, then obviously had that 4-month hiatus, and then back for 4 more. But now we've had a bit of an extended break again. So I'm just trying to get into a rhythm. I think a rhythm is something that's underratedly important, especially for rookies or younger guys like myself. So that's something that I'm trying to get into a groove. So yeah, but really important. Obviously play against different opponents, learn against each opponent presents different challenges. Learn what your opponent does well, what they don't do well. The more experienced guys have a better idea of what these teams are capable and what certain players are capable of. So I think experience is 100% a good thing and something that's necessary, especially for a center back. So yeah, getting those minutes in Orlando were really important personally. And, playing against those different teams was also important.
Henry, I know that you are obviously in your rookie season right now, and coming from UVA, I'm not sure if any of your teammates also went pro this year. If you had any friends that went pro, what was this experience like for you guys coming into your first season with all of the unusual twists and turns?
Yeah, I had a few. One plays for Orlando. So he just got home today, because they just played in the final. And his experience was, kind of similar in the sense that he, was trying to find routine and, just felt like he was getting into it after the 2 weeks and starting to get a feel for the professional game. So, we were all obviously disappointed when we heard the news that the league was going to be suspended. But, so I think he's had a similar experience. I had a teammate go to Norway, and I think that's been different leagues have handled this differently. They stopped for a bit, but now they're back going, and I think they even have some fans in the stands as well. So it's been a little bit different for him. But so for the guys that are in MLS, I think it's been a similar experience. For the guys that are in other leagues, it's been slightly different.
Has it been important to kind of have those conversations with fellow rookies? Because this is such a unique circumstance, and everybody who's dealing with this season is dealing with obstacles and challenges that they've never had to deal with before. Even if guys have been in the league for 10 years, obviously this is a completely new situation. But particularly for guys who are new to the league, new to the professional game, you're trying to establish yourself. You're trying, like you said, to kind of learn the ropes and get set into a routine, and you just haven't been able to do it. You've had to deal with all these different obstacles at every different turn. So I'm sure it kind of takes a toll mentally too, just trying to deal with all these different obstacles. So has it been important to kind of have those conversations with fellow rookies just to know other guys are out there dealing with these things and kind of figure out how each other have dealt with some of these obstacles?
Yeah, it's been really important, to express similar frustrations, talk like, what can we do to make the best of this situation? Stuff like that, it's really important. And I like how you touched on the mental part of it. It's tough, not knowing what's coming next, not knowing your schedule, sometimes even for the next week. So, things change very quickly right now, and those are just the circumstances, and that's something we have to deal with. But something that's helped me a lot is talking to teammates, talking to former teammates that are now rookies, and just sharing what they're doing, what they can do. Just trying to keep each other positive, and just trying to make the best of this situation.
And we do have a little bit of an idea now, at least, what's coming up for the next at least 4 or 5 weeks or so. And we're going to get to all that. We're going to talk about how you guys are prepping for the return of the regular season. But I did first want to just touch upon the performances in Orlando, particularly from the defensive point of view, because obviously you guys were so solid defensively for most of that tournament in Orlando, only conceding 2 goals in the 4 games. You guys kept a pair of clean sheets, and there was a lot of that was with a lot of rotation along the back line, at center back, in midfield in front of the back line. But particularly when you look at the four center backs who were used in Orlando and how you guys all kind of rotated through the lineup from game to game. How deep is this group at center back with the four guys that you have used pretty consistently already this season?
Yeah, for sure. All four guys are capable of putting in a shift and keeping a clean sheet. Like you said, we kept two in Orlando. So, a goal against average of 0.5 is pretty good. I'd take that. Everyone is certainly capable. I think something in practice that we've tried to do is get everyone playing with one another. So not just keeping two guys playing together, but mixing the groups to, increase that familiarity. But for sure, everyone's done a great job thus far. I think also Matt Turner has done an incredible job behind us, so he deserves some of that credit. But yeah, very deep. I think everyone has slightly different attributes, but they can all bring something to the game. So, it's a good to learn from those guys for sure, and it's tough to compete for a spot.
We talk all the time about partnerships on the field, and obviously in terms of partnerships, center back partnerships are one of the positions on the field where it seems like that relationship is most important. And as you've kind of rotated guys through those positions and you've played with different guys at center back, how have you learned kind of the different attributes of the center backs who have been playing alongside of you, and how important is to know those attributes, and how differently do you sometimes have to kind of approach a game yourself, knowing who's alongside you and kind of what their strengths and weaknesses are?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think their attributes and tendencies. Tendencies is another word that I like to use. So, knowing that if I'm playing with someone and they like to drive a little bit and go forward, I need to tuck in a little bit if they're going up a little bit. Some stuff like that is really important. How we're holding the line. For the most part, we would like to be uniform with that stuff for all the center backs, but everyone's slightly different. But like you said, it's a really important relationship with the back four as well, not just the center backs. But yeah, for sure, getting familiar with each other has helped. Everyone has a slightly different style, but all really, really quality.
Now, as we look ahead, we mentioned we at least have a little bit of an idea what is coming down the pipe. We know the next 6 games on the schedule. We know that it's going to begin next Friday night at home at Gillette Stadium, August 21st against the Philadelphia Union. So you guys took a week off when you came back from Orlando. You've been back in training now for about a week and a half. You've got another week and a half or so ahead of that Philadelphia game as we talk today. What have been kind of the main objectives, you think, in training so far as you've kind of bridged that gap between Orlando and heading into the rest of the regular season?
Yeah, something Coach Bruce has been emphasizing a lot during practice is being a tough team to play against. So, pressuring the ball, getting our lineup, some of that's responsibility is us center backs, us defenders. But, really getting around the ball, winning tackles, and then going forward from there. He said we want to be a really tough team to play against and not make it easy for teams to have possession against us. So I think that's something we've been working a lot on. Also, just making sure that we keep up this fitness. We did get a few days off, so we wanted to make sure that we've done a little running since to make sure we get our legs back underneath us. And try to get everyone healthy, rejuvenated again. It was a long time in Orlando, and we have like you said, a lot of games in a little time. So trying to get everyone healthy has also been an objective.
And there are going to be obviously a lot of challenges that are going to have to be tackled over the course of the next few months. It's just kind of the nature of the situation. Every team is going to deal with the same challenges as you get the regular season back underway. And one of them, which we've talked about quite a bit, is the condensed schedule, playing games every 4 or 5 days or so, really for the next couple months. So what kind of challenge is that going to be? I know none of the guys have really ever played a schedule that's been quite that condensed for quite that long. So how do you tackle that type of challenge? And as you mentioned, how important is it going to be, just like it was in Orlando, to have everybody ready every game if guys are going to have to be called upon?
Right, 100%. It'll be important to have everyone ready. The 5 substitution rule is still in effect, no? Yeah, so
I believe so, yeah.
With increased substitutions, even more guys have to be ready, have to be prepared to come on and make a difference. Condensed schedule, also when I saw it at first, I thought, oh, this is a college schedule. So, it's interesting because we used to play Tuesday, Friday, sometimes even then Monday. That's 3 games in a week. So I think some of those guys we'll look at that and say, oh, we've done this in the past. Obviously, it's a higher level now, but we can do it now. But for sure, a lot of guys need to be ready. There has to be some rotation with all those games in 3 days, then 4 days, then coming in quick succession. So certainly a lot of guys have to be ready, have to be prepared, and So I mean, college season. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Henry, it sounds like you have a fresh perspective with the college game day type of setting. And in the condensed schedule like this, you're going to have the recovery period that needs to obviously be implemented before the next game. But how important is the mental tenacity when you have a condensed schedule like this?
Yeah, it's important every game to, bring that energy, and oftentimes that starts mentally. So, while it'll be important to recover physically, I think there will be some sessions after games if we have a game in 3 days, where we might just be taking it easy, which is really important. I'd be curious to see how many, when we'll have an off day and when we won't. But you're right, mentally we need to be prepared for that, to be tenacious and get after it come game day.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you bring up that college schedule and how it kind of mirrors that a little bit. And we usually talk to younger players, and the big challenge for them is usually the length of the MLS calendar. You're used to playing in college a schedule and a season from about August to November. You get to the professional level and the season goes from January preseason camp all the way through November. And guys, usually that big challenge is you get 6, 7, 8 months into a season and you've just never quite played that long. Now it almost seems like you guys have a little bit of an advantage because this really is going to kind of mirror that type of schedule that you guys are used to playing in college.
Certainly that's the way I'm looking at it, is that I have an advantage. The guys that have played college soccer have an advantage. We've done this before. So that's trying to put a positive spin on it, but hopefully it does make a difference. Honestly, I think everyone will be ready whether they've played in college or not. And like you said, the vets, they've played in much more difficult circumstances, playing 10 months out of the year. So, I think they'll be fine physically. I think they'll be ready to go. And just to get back on it, we have a very deep squad as well. So if we do need to make changes, that's definitely a possibility.
I know another one of the challenges too is going to be traveling day of game, which doesn't happen a lot at the professional level. Really the only times that I've been with the Reds and they've had to travel day of game, it's because there's been weather issues and you were forced to travel day of game. But maybe that's another instance where you're used to it at the college level. What are the challenges going to be like, you think, for guys getting into that type of mode where you're going to wake up in your own bed? You're then going to be traveling to a road game and getting yourself ready to play on the road at night.
Yeah, we wouldn't even do that in college. We would go the night before too. But I think, some guys will look at it as, I get to sleep in my own bed. That's a positive. The trips will be quick. I think Chicago is the only one where we're planning to be overnight, which obviously makes sense. But, I think we'll check into a hotel. We'll be able to relax still. So I don't think it shouldn't have a huge effect on us. The trips are all relatively short. So I think we should be able to take care of business even on the road. But you're right, it is different. It's something that we'll have to be prepared for. It will be odd waking up in your own bed and then having an away game that same day. Mentally, I think we need to be ready. But yeah, I think we've dealt with adversity before, and I think this is just another one of those things that we'll have to deal with.
I know another of the challenges that you guys are going to be facing over the course of the next few months is being without your captain and Carlos Gil, who it was announced last week had successful surgery on his left Achilles tendon. So we know he's going to miss, very likely the majority of the season, if not all the season. And we've talked at length about, what you miss without Carlos Gil on the field. We'll continue to talk about that, I'm sure, throughout the course of the coming weeks and months. But I want to touch with you upon what you miss with Carlos Gil in the locker room as a leader, because this guy is not just kind of your talisman on the field as your playmaker. He's the captain as well. So what how do as a group you try to kind of make up for the leadership you lose with Carlos not in the locker room, and who are those guys who as a rookie you've seen kind of step up and be kind of those vocal leaders?
Yeah, for sure. We'll miss him on and off the field. He's a charismatic guy, bilingual. That really helps. He's able to reach everyone. Having played in the Prem, I think his English is fantastic. Obviously knows Spanish as well. So he's able to speak to everyone, which is important. And like you said, he's a good leader on and off the field. So that's certainly a guy that we'll miss. I think, I read something after the Montreal game, he created 8 chances, something like that. And after one game, it put him second in the league for most chances created. So certainly we'll miss his talent. But in terms of leadership, we'll miss him as well. And older guys, that I've seen step up, Teal, Andrew, these older guys, I think we'll have to lean on a little bit more. And obviously Gustavo is our interim captain. So we'll have to lean on those guys for their leadership a little bit more. And I think they've done a great job thus far.
It was actually 12 chances created, and he was first in the league after that game. Yeah, it was the most that any Revolution player created in a single game since Opta started tracking that stat. And I don't even know, something like 2010. So it was a decent game. So obviously we know that Carlos is going to be missed, and guys are going to have to step up. That's the nature of professional sports. I want to talk a little bit too about kind of the uniqueness of the safety protocols and all this that's going on, because it's going to be a topic of conversation, obviously, as we go through the course of this season. And, it's going to be a big factor as you try to get this season completed. What's it been like for you just kind of adjusting to the normalcy of all of these safety procedures? Because it does feel like, at least from my perspective, when we were down in Orlando, it's kind of crazy how normal it became just to pop down to the COVID testing room, get a quick COVID test, and then go to training or go to dinner or go back to your room. Like, it seemed like it was pretty quick that it became a normal part of everyday life. So how do you think you and guys have adjusted to all the protocols?
Yeah, you're right. It's crazy what has become normal. Phone, keys, wallet, mask. That's the next one. So, mask everywhere. In Orlando, it was your credential as well. You had to walk around with your identification. And then COVID tests every other day. So it became a normal thing. And we're still COVID tests every other day here as well. But, it's obviously very strange, but at the same time, it's, like you said, become normal. I think guys have done a really good job, whenever we're inside the facility, wearing a mask, stuff like that, using hand sanitizer, taking their temperature constantly, just doing a really good job of keeping that place clean and safe and making it a safe environment. And then off the field, just making smart decisions, not going to, highly populated areas and whatnot. So I think as a team, we've done a really good job. And yeah, it's just, I can't believe what it's come to, in terms of masks and tests. And it's crazy. You're right, how normal that has become. But, it's just another one of those things we'll have to deal with for now. And hopefully things go back to normal shortly.
And obviously everything down in the bubble went about as smoothly as you could have hoped for. Obviously you mentioned the initial complications with FC Dallas and Nashville, but there was a plan in place to deal with that, and then a really smooth operation from then on. It's going to be a completely different challenge now that everyone's back in their home markets. So you kind of touched upon it, as everyone's back in their home markets now. And this includes a lot of staff members as well. Elizabeth and I are on the tested for COVID every other day schedule as well, because we're going to be interacting with the players all the time. There's a lot of staff who are going to be, kind of involved in that little bit of a bubble as well. So what kind of sense of personal responsibility is there for guys, for staff, and what's kind of been the message that's been conveyed to you in terms of that personal responsibility to make sure everything can go as smoothly as it needs to?
Yeah, there's a lot of responsibility on the players and staff, and you got, everyone who is associated with the league right now. So everyone who is in and out of the building, has a responsibility to take care of themselves and in turn take care of the people around them. I think, the huge incentive that we have is everyone wants to play. So, the safer guys are, the better decisions they make, the more likely we are to play and, continue and complete this season. So I think, guys are doing what they love, playing the sport. So that's a huge incentive that, do I want to make this decision that could potentially harm not only me, but my teammates and my family, So I think people are making the right decisions, and, we all want to play. We don't want anyone sick. So I think with those reasons in mind, people have been making the right decisions.
And then as we look forward to these games, which we hope obviously that everything goes just as smoothly as it did in the bubble, and you've got 18 more games coming up in the next 80 days. We only know the first 6 games right now, but we know that it's going to stay relatively regional throughout the remainder of the regular season. You guys are already going to see Philly again twice in these upcoming games, a team you saw in Orlando. You're going to see DC again. You're going to see Chicago again. I'm sure a lot of those opponents will continue to repeat themselves. So how does that kind of shape things as you approach these next 18 games? Because you are going to be seeing a lot of opponents over and over again throughout the course of the next couple months.
Yeah, it's something I touched on earlier with the experience and, the veterans knowing certain opponents' tendencies and what they like to do, what they don't want you to do. Especially as a defender, I think the more you see an opponent, the maybe the easier it becomes. So certainly if we end up playing those same teams over and over again, then I think, you'll pick up on certain things that players do, and that might make our job easier. Also, I'm sure they'll adapt after a couple times, but, as teams become more and more familiar with each other, adjustments will be made. But so it'll be interesting to see how tactically the game changes and how individuals make changes with this increased familiarity, playing the same team several times in quick succession.
Henry, on a personal level, we saw you, at the beginning of the year in preseason in particular, make changes based on feedback that you got from the coaches in those preseason early games. And it seems like you're a really good quick learner when someone gives you feedback. How can that potentially help you personally as you might be playing, Chicago or Philadelphia a couple times throughout this condensed schedule?
Right. Thanks. I try not to make the same mistake twice. So, if the coaches tell me something, I obviously try to make an adjustment and try to fix it so it doesn't happen again. Certainly, I think we'll look back at those games that we played and make adjustments to what, things we did well, things we didn't do well. Chicago was a draw, although we created a bunch of chances. So maybe that's a game we look to and say we need to do more of this. Philadelphia didn't go as well, so I'm sure there will be more changes that we make. And then, obviously we'll become more and more familiar with these teams as we play them more often. But for sure, there are things that will change, things that we'll probably emphasize more and hope to do more of. But, as we see these opponents more and more, hopefully we learn more about them and we can make the adjustments that help us be successful.
At what point did you implement the not making 2 mistakes ever? I just mean throughout your life, like when did you adopt that mentality? Because it's very clear it's part of your identity. Who did you pick that up from, or how did you kind of start to implement that?
Right. Yeah. I think I might have got it from my mom mostly. And yeah, I mean, she even says if you can learn from other people's mistakes, that's even better. Then you don't have to make them. But yeah, exactly. So maybe from her, but I've had plenty of great coaches who have, given me good instruction, and obviously no one wants to make mistakes. So it's something that once I'm given information, it's something that's in the back of my head, and I'll try to avoid next time.
That's great. I'm going to try to watch everyone else's mistakes and just not make any from now on.
Yeah.
I was going to say, from now we should just have like one exhibition game where you just make every mistake you could possibly make over the course of a career. And then from there, they'll all be learned, and you'll never make any of those mistakes ever again. It'll be perfect.
Right. Yeah.
I am interested too to see how the intensity level might ratchet up in some of these games as you see teams over and over again. The way that maybe in a playoff series you see the same team a few times in a short amount of time, because I feel like normally in a regular season, maybe there's a crunching tackle that happens in March and it's on your mind for a little bit, but then you don't see that team again until August, and by then it's kind of gone out of your mind. Now, a lot of those types of things, those things that happen in games, you're going to end up seeing those teams again a week and a half down the road, 2 weeks down the road. Like, do you think there could be a little bit more of those, that intensity ratchet up, almost like rivalries generated because you're seeing these teams over and over again?
Certainly, I think more revenge, and I'm not speaking for myself, more revenge will be taken. Yes, as you said, no one likes to get hit hard. So if that does happen on either side, I'm sure the other player will remember it and look to get them back. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But yeah, and also another point is that, we don't, hopefully everything goes smoothly, but we don't necessarily know how many games we'll be playing. Say a game gets canceled here. So as the table starts to form, I think teams fighting for points, might ratchet up the intensity a bit, try to qualify for those playoff spots.
I don't know why this made me just think of that question, but I feel like you see a lot of times centerbacks are big into mind games when they're defending a particular center forward over the course of a 90-minute match. Say you're a center back who's lined up against the same guy throughout the course of an entire match. Maybe as a rookie, it's a little bit different, but how big are you into kind of getting in a guy's ear throughout the course of 90 minutes, playing a little bit of those mind games? How are you in terms of that type of approach?
I do a little, but I know guys that do a lot more. I think right now I'm still trying to establish myself. So I think that's, you hear the vets talking more smack, trying to get in people's heads, trying to get them rattled. But for me, a younger guy, still trying to establish myself. Maybe it's something I should do more of. I don't know. Maybe it works. I also think it depends on the player that you're playing up against. If they get really rattled or really angry, then maybe it incentivizes you to do it more. But it's not something I do a ton of. But certainly I hear some of the veteran guys do a bit more of it.
Let the play do the talking for now.
Yeah, for now. We'll see if it changes.
Just until you get established, until you've made every mistake you can make, and then there are no more mistakes. And then you can talk all you want, because you're not going to make any mistakes. So
no mistakes to be made. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm really glad that we've been able to devise this plan over the course of this podcast, and that we'll all move forward now from this show, better than we were before. That's really the goal.
Better. Yep. And then once we've made all those mistakes, we'll be perfect, as you said. This is our 332nd podcast, I think, over the course of like 11 years, and where I'm still making. I found mistakes to be made that I didn't even know existed, and I'm still making them all the time.
It sounds like the 2 appearances on the podcast, though, Henry hasn't figured out. So
that's true.
It took you 332 times. It only took him 2.
Yeah, if I haven't figured it out after 332, I don't think I'm going to figure it out. I think my time to make mistakes has passed. That's what it is. All right. Well, Henry, we will leave it there. We really appreciate you taking the time. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. Fantastic insight. We're really looking forward to seeing the guys get back on the field. And we finally got some soccer to talk about, man. It's exciting.
Awesome.
It's exciting. Thank you guys so much for having me. And I want to make it clear that I make plenty of mistakes, but hope to be improving on those. Yeah.
All right. Well, Henry, thanks so much for taking the time, man. And Revolution fans, we're back on the Far Post Podcast. We'll see you soon as we continue to preview the rest of the 2020 season here on the Far Post Podcast.